Hey, it's Teresa from Life Beyond Diabetes, and welcome back to my kitchen on this Saturday. Today, I'm going to be making 1-minute muffins. Now, this may be something that you've heard of before. 1-minute muffins are, basically it's called 1 minute because that's about how long it takes in the microwave. It takes just a couple minutes longer than that to toss all the ingredients together, pop them in a mug, and mix them together, and get it in the microwave. Fantastic snack. The recipe that I use, I prefer DJ Foodie's recipes for 1-minute muffins, and I will put a link to that in the description of this live after it's done. And he has a cookbook called Taking Out the Garbage, but he also has most of his recipes available right directly on his website. So I will link both to the to his main website where you can find his cookbook if you're interested, and also to this recipe specifically. The one I'm going to be making today is chocolate 1-minute muffin. There's a lot of different kinds of them, but chocolate sounded good to me today. It's very, very simple to make. And it's so simple that I didn't even prepare the ingredients ahead of time. We're going to just do it right now. So we start with 1.5 tablespoons of ground chia seed. Now this might be a specialty ingredient that you don't have in your house. And I got to do the quick math. 1.5 tablespoons. So tablespoon, let me pop that in. A tablespoon has 3 teaspoons, so another 1/2 tablespoon is going to be 1.5 teaspoons. So what was I saying? Chia seeds. You can order these online, or you can probably find them in your local organic grocery store or Whole Foods store. Some mainline grocery stores carry these things, but not as much. But you can definitely find them on Amazon. Again, ground chia seeds. The recipe also uses a substitute of flax meal. I just choose the chia seeds because that's what I have. Next thing is almond flour, and if you've been cooking with me at all, you know that almond flour is probably my most used ingredient. It is 2 tablespoons of almond flour, so let me just go ahead and pop that in the mug. And you probably can't see where you are, but I'm just putting these ingredients right directly into a mug. Next thing is 1 tablespoon of sugar replacement. Now, the sweetener that I like to use is this Lakanto monk fruit sweetener. It's not quite as easy to find as Swerve, and this takes 1 tablespoon of this. It's not quite as easy to find as Swerve, but I like it because it doesn't have that, Swerve tends to give you a cool feeling in your mouth, kind of almost like mint, and I don't really particularly like that. So if you don't like that, this is the sweetener that I've been using, and it doesn't have much of an artificial sweetener taste to it, so I'm a big fan of this. And it is plant-based, like stevia and erythritol, and it does contain erythritol, like Swerve. The next thing is unsweetened cocoa powder. I just use basic old-fashioned Hershey's cocoa powder, and that's 1 tablespoon of that. Pop that in. And then 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Teaspoon, 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, I've got all the dry, and then I always forget this part. And then just a little dash of salt. Pop that in. And then I mix it up with a fork. And I know I've talked about mixing with fork before, but a lot of these, the almond flour especially, gets really lumpy. And when you use a fork, it kind of just pushes those lumps right out. So I'm just mixing up the dry ingredients in here. The next thing I'm going to use is, the next ingredients that it calls for are an egg and 1 tablespoon of melted butter. And I will tell you, I frequently don't cook with whole eggs because I don't tolerate egg yolks very well. So what I do in recipes like this, where it calls for a whole egg, I know that the yolk is probably there doing some work in the recipe. So what I do is I use an egg white, and then I add extra fat. So in this case, instead of doing 1 tablespoon of melted butter, I'm doing 2 tablespoons of melted butter. So I have already separated my egg and mixed it with the melted butter. So I've got 2 tablespoons of melted butter here and an egg white. And I'm just gonna give these a good mix. Again, I'm gonna just keep mixing it up with my fork so I can get into the corners of the mug. And as that's getting mixed up in there, let's see if you can see that. There we go. Kind of gives it like get a little bit more mixed up in here. It almost gives it a cake batter kind of feel. Not quite as dry as brownie dough, more really like kind of like cake dough, cake batter. And now DJ Foodie has all sorts of suggestions for things that you can put in this to make it a little bit more exciting. And what I'm doing today is I'm adding some sugar-free chocolate bar cut up into little tiny pieces. So I'll show you, this is the one that I use. And it came in my little keto subscription box that I get. And it is sweetened with erythritol. And I just used one chunk of it, one bite of it. Now this whole thing the whole bar is a serving. And I just chopped up the little chunks. Some little chunks in there, and then pour them right into there and give that a good stir. You can also get low-carb chocolate chips or sugar-free chocolate chips, or if you want to have a splurge, you could also use just regular chocolate chips. There's, not very many of them. Another thing that I've done in the past that I really like in this, but I couldn't find any today, I thought I had some in my cupboard, but I don't, is cocoa nibs. They give it a really nice crunch. It's kind of got a really good texture. So this is all mixed up now, and you can see the batter is kind of like almost like a brownie in this case, more, not as light as a cake batter. And I'm just gonna push that all down to the bottom. And I'm gonna set that fork in the egg bowl. And then I just pop it in the microwave. Now his recipe calls for 60 to 120 seconds. Through trial and error, I know that in my microwave, this recipe takes 1 minute and 10 seconds. So you'll probably need to play with that yourself. Let's see, what else do I need to tell you about this recipe? Oh, so I mentioned that there's a lot of different Ohm recipes that he's got and that you can find elsewhere on the internet. There's one that's also available that is a pumpkin spice recipe, and it's basically, it's kind of like a pumpkin spice muffin that you end up with. And I like to make that with frozen cranberries, if I happen to have any frozen cranberries. It gives it so that's a really nice spice thing. And it's fun to just take the basic recipe for these Ohm muffins, or Ohm muffin, I guess they're 1 minute muffins, so that kind of is redundant. But the thing I like about these is that you can kind of figure out what the basic recipe is with the chia seed, the almond flour, the sugar replacement, and baking powder, and you can invent your own muffins. So I'm using one of these recipes today, but play with it. Let me know if you do play with it and how that works for you. So let's see how this turned out. Ooh, it's nice and steamy and the mug is hot. Okay, and this is what it looks like. And it's on the inside, it looks kind of like cake. Let's see if I can get a bite of it out. Looks like cake, and it turned out really good. So I've been here for about 9 minutes talking to you, and I've got dessert, and it's really good. Oh, another hint on a way that you can do this is that when you figured out which of these muffins you like to make, you can make your own muffin mix and have it ready to go. So you can multiply the recipe and then keep the dry ingredients in a container, and then you can just grab however much fits, what a scoop is for a serving, and then put the egg in, and then whatever other wet ingredient, if it calls for melted butter, or some of them don't have melted butter added into them. So that's a big time saver. I've done that in the past. I don't have any muffin mix currently made, but it makes for, so if you wanted to have one of the, like a breakfast one, super easy. You can do it pretty much before you've had your coffee. I love things that breakfast that I can make without thinking. So I encourage you to try these 1 minute muffins. You might want to add a little bit of whipped cream to the top of this because yum. And I will see you here tomorrow at 2:30 Pacific. Bye.